Mark Rogers TV talking Ohio State football with the Buckeyes going to camp later this week. We bring in Claire Crawford. She writes for theozone.net. Claire, how you doing today?
I couldn't be better if I were twins. I'm doing well. How are you?
That's pretty good. I thought I was doing well, but I don't know if I can match that, but I've got the rest of the day to try. So that's a goal I can set. That's good stuff. So, definitely, Claire, when I look at the Ohio State situation in the national perspective on the Buckeyes, I liken it to 10 years ago in regards to the Buckeyes coming off 2 national championship game losses. And even though they were the best in the Big Ten was looked down upon in a sense from the national media. And therefore, Ohio State was viewed in some circles as kind of a paper tiger. But this being completely different, even though they lost in somewhat of a devastating fashion against Clemson, I think there's a belief that Urban Meyer has this program in the right place, and they're just going to continue on. And that was a blip on the radar, and they'll just march into 2017 and vie for a playoff spot again. So just kind of your thoughts on where the Buckeyes stand from a national perspective, and just what you hear from the fan base and from other media members.
Sure. Well, actually Kevin Wilson commented on the other day about the Buckeyes and their attitude after the Clemson loss, and knowing that it could have been taken in a negative way and it could have broken down the program. The general attitude is that there's a maturity amongst this group, and they're using it as a positive motivation. So that's what we want to hear. That's what good teams do. That's what the elite teams do, is to move on to that next level when something like that happens. And honestly, I think Urban Meyer teams that have something to prove end up being overachievers.
When we look at this team, Claire, loaded with talent, the recruiting classes continue to rank near the top of college football. If we look at this particular team and some of the concerns from last year, it was, okay, has JT Barrett lost something? Is the arm strength not what it used to be? Has he become gun shy because the offensive line and the protection's not what it should be? And the Penn State game was kind of the classic example of the offensive line breaking down. And of course, not getting much movement against Michigan and Clemson. The outside receivers probably underperforming to an extent that we've never seen with Ohio State. So what gives you confidence that some of these concerns are going to be cleared up?
Well, I think the general consensus is that Kevin Wilson, our new offensive coordinator there at Ohio State, is going to be bringing an up-tempo offense. That leaves less time for breakdowns to happen. I'm not super clear yet whether it's going to be a simplified offense. Often simple plays end up being the easiest to run a little quicker. He has mentioned that he doesn't have a particular second count that he wants on these plays, but it's definitely been a very clear message that this team is going to be running a lot of tempo. I think that's where JT Barrett is most comfortable. I know for a fact that's where Kevin Wilson is most comfortable. We know that Urban is a fan of that as well. And even Ryan Day, the new quarterbacks coach at Ohio State, has a lot of experience under Chip Kelly with tempo and running an up-tempo offense. And there's a little more season at that offensive line now. So they're going to be they're not having to hold on as long. If, let's say, a play breaks down, they are going to be able to execute a little bit easier. With that comes more need for conditioning and depth, and that's where we're rolling around with some question marks. And we know that Mickey Mariotti is one of the finest conditioning coaches, strength and conditioning coaches, if not the finest in the nation. And he's always got his teams ready with tempo, and Kevin Wilson has mentioned it, that he's going to need depth. He says you can't run tempo with 11 players. So it'll be interesting to see how many players get touches and how they end up rotating that. But it certainly is something that I think JT Barrett is suited for.
Yeah, so you lead me right into my next question in terms of the number of players that are going to touch the football. So we've seen in the past stars at Ohio State, guys on the outside like a Michael Thomas would be, and Devin Smith would be the latest examples of star players that are on the field 80-90% of the time, but more of a rotation last year because they couldn't find guys that were going to make plays. So we could both rip off 7 or 8 names of guys that need to contribute. But who are you looking forward to seeing, whether it's a Parris Campbell or a KJ Hill and on down the line, Johnnie Dixon? Who are some of the guys that you think could really be outstanding contributors?
So the first name that you mentioned, Parris Campbell, I'm really excited. It looks like he's going to be moved to the H-back position, and following, in Braxton Miller and Curtis Samuel's footsteps in that H-back position, especially with the tempo offense. I will be really interested to see what Parris can bring to the table and if he's suited for that position. It looks like he will be. He'll most likely be on kickoff and punt return. He's a very dynamic player. He has some experience with running back as well. So I'm excited to see what Parris can do and if he can step up and how they're going to use that H-back position, especially under Kevin Wilson's offense. I think he's going to be probably one of the biggest and most dynamic difference makers, other than obviously JT Barrett. And it's difficult, when I hear people say, JT should have moved on, or, already somehow calling for Joe Burrow. But I think the combination of the failed JT Cardale experiment and then everybody leaving for the NFL draft, I think it's going to be interesting to see who JT Barrett ends up connecting with this year. But Parris is definitely on my list. Johnnie Dixon, too. From all reports, Zach Smith has an embarrassment of riches at wide receiver. It's just going to be who ends up standing out. Johnnie Dixon is one of those guys that has been nicked up here and there, but it's his time to step up. This is go time for him. This is his time to really make his money.